To get close to the beautiful, beloved wife he hadn't seen in years, the man deliberately pretended to bump into him. But he never expected that his little wife would be terrifyingly strong. His name was Daniel, living in a city where red snow often fell, and anyone foolish enough to step outside during a red snow night almost never returned. Some said those people were taken by death itself, but the truth was far more horrifying than death. That day, Daniel had just stepped out of the supermarket. Everyone around him was still whispering nervously about the new red snow warning. Suddenly, a filthy foot stretched out in front of him. Daniel didn't need to look twice to know the man was picking a fight. "You bumped into me, apologize." Daniel didn't bother. His voice was cold. "Move your foot." Instead, Terry pushed further. "And what if I don't?" The answer came instantly, through action, not words. Terry let out a strangled scream of pain, while Daniel didn't even blink. Just then, Daniel's friend jogged up with the groceries. "Walk slower, will you?" But as they neared Daniel's apartment complex, the sky abruptly shifted. Red snow began to fall. Daniel knew immediately. Tonight would be another sleepless night, and he wondered how many people would disappear this time. Luckily, they were close to his building. As long as they got inside and locked the doors, they'd be safe. But then his friend suddenly said he needed to live stream. He had promised his fans that today, on the night of red snow, he'd live stream from the park. Before Daniel could react, the friend grabbed his coat. Daniel panicked, trying to stop him, but the guy just laughed. "Relax, I'll stop streaming once my debts are paid off." Daniel quickly said, "My house keys are still in that coat." He didn't finish. His friend's head vanished. Daniel froze in horror. Before him, a massive, indescribable creature slowly materialized, and it was swallowing his friend's body whole. His limbs trembled violently. He couldn't run. He couldn't scream. He could only watch helplessly as his friend was dragged into that monstrous stomach. Thankfully, the keys fell to the ground. Daniel understood immediately. That was his only chance. While the creature was still eating, he had to grab the keys and run inside. He crept forward carefully. His hand was inches from the keys when a pair of enormous newborn-like eyes snapped open, locking onto him. Daniel's heart lurched. He lunged, grabbed the keys, and bolted. Except his legs refused to cooperate. He could barely crawl, collapsing again as he dragged himself toward the door. He reached the entrance, shaking hands violently as he shoved the key into the lock. He thought he was safe. But the next instant, the creature's umbilical cord speared straight through his body. And at that exact moment, the man from earlier appeared again. He restrained the monster while Daniel lay dying. With quick, practiced movements, the man forced a vial of medicine between Daniel's lips. Daniel slipped unconsciously and dreamed of the moment he was born. Back then, too, it had been a red snow night. Screams echoed everywhere, and a faceless figure stood over him, laughing eerily. Daniel jolted awake in terror. Beside him sat Terry. He smirked. "Remember me now?" Truthfully, Terry had been so relieved to see Daniel wake up that he wanted to jump for joy. But instead, he pretended not to care. "You should thank me. Without me, you'd be scattered all over the street." Daniel shot him a cold glare. "Did I ask you to save me?" That one sentence reminded Terry of the Daniel he'd known as a child. Back then, he had been so lively. Who would have thought he'd grow into a man this cold? Terry switched the topic. "You really don't remember me? You're not an ordinary human anymore. One red snow cycle isn't enough to wipe someone's memory." Daniel had no idea what he meant. All he remembered was being impaled by the monster. He pulled up his shirt to check. The fatal wound was completely healed. Daniel couldn't believe it. The traces were there, but his body had recovered. Terry took the chance to tease him. "Meeting again after all these years and you're already stripping in front of me? Trying to seduce me?" Then he added, "A wound like that healing so fast. You think I'm the monster, don't you?" Daniel couldn't walk, but he wasn't someone to be bullied. He harshly slapped Terry's hand away. "Who exactly are you? Why do you know my name?" Terry cursed under his breath from the pain. But he couldn't hit his little wife, so he manipulated blood to bind Daniel in place. Today, I'm going to teach you how to talk properly. Right now, if I snap my fingers, your head will fall off. Daniel's face drained of color. Reason kicked in, and he quickly changed his tone. I remember you. Satisfied, Terry released him. But Daniel suddenly felt a sharp pain return to his legs. Seeing his confusion, Terry explained, "Say goodbye to your old life. When I poured 6,547 into your mouth, you became a spirit purger." Daniel asked what that meant. Terry said, "The monster that killed you was originally human. A purger's job is to eliminate them." Before Daniel could respond, a chilling aura surged through the room. The two of them turned. The enormous creature was clinging to the window. Before either could react, it lunged. Daniel threw himself forward, shoving Terry out of the way. Facing that nightmarish thing, Terry wasn't afraid at all. He even sounded calm. "Wife, want to try your new strength?" The window frame shattered and flew toward them. Terry tilted his head slightly, dodging effortlessly. The one who got crushed by the frame was Daniel. Terry looked genuinely startled and quickly tried to explain that it had been pure instinct. But before he could finish speaking, Daniel grabbed his collar and yanked him in front, using him as a shield. Terry stood there in stunned silence as goo from the creature splattered all over him. He blinked, then realized the stuff on his face was the monster's saliva. Daniel shrugged innocently. Instinct. The next second, the wall burst open. The creature charged again. Daniel couldn't believe it. Yesterday he couldn't even stand, but today he was running and jumping like normal. But there was no time to think. Terry's voice cut through sharply. "A piece of advice, stay here. Don't do anything stupid." Daniel hated admitting it, but the situation was too dangerous. He could only watch Terry face the monster alone. With a flick of blood manipulation, Terry leapt upward and severed the creature's arm. It roared, hurling debris. Terry blocked it, sounding both disgusted and annoyed. Filthy and bothersome. Meanwhile, Daniel observed carefully, searching for a weakness. If the creature used to be human, then the heart was likely its vital point. He clenched his fists, thinking of the friend who died so unjustly. Back then, he could do nothing. But today, he believed he could. He waited for an opening and leapt, but the creature turned impossibly fast and swallowed him whole. Terry's expression changed instantly. He decapitated the monster in a single move. He wasn't unscathed. His own injuries were severe. Thankfully, Daniel crawled out from the creature's mouth. Terry grabbed him by the hair, flung him aside, and snapped, "I warned you." Daniel was furious and tried to attack, but he was no match. Terry kicked him down and stepped on him hard. "You can't even handle me, yet you want to kill a monster? Ridiculous." Daniel refused to back down. He grabbed Terry's ankle and yanked, flipping him. He snatched up a shard of glass and held it to Terry's neck. Terry froze. A second ago, he'd been disciplining his wife, and now there was a blade at his throat. His voice softened entirely. "In this position, I prefer being the one on top." His hand traced along the back of Daniel's. "Shame your whole body is filthy right now. I prefer things clean." Daniel was flustered and didn't know how to respond. At that moment, the monster's corpse shrank and turned into a child. "You two, like arguing too?" Terry ignored the question and asked, "How many people have you eaten?" Daniel shuddered. So the monster had been this boy all along? The child lowered his head, voice trembling. I don't remember. Just that my uncle and aunt were fighting again. No one wanted me. He had been abandoned by his parents, taken in by relatives who despised him. During one violent fight, a chair smashed his beloved pet turtle. He tried to protect it but was injured instead. Seeing his own blood and hearing their cruel words, something inside him snapped. He felt he didn't belong in this world. In despair, his body mutated into that monstrous form. He swallowed every scream, literally. His uncle, aunt, cousins, none of them ever spoke again. Daniel went silent. He remembered himself as a child, losing his parents, being sent to his uncle's house, treated like a burden. His only companion had been his wheelchair. The boy said he had one last wish. The two followed him back home to a place drenched in blood. Terry looked annoyed. He's already dead. The dead don't know anything. He implied the dying weren't worth caring about. Daniel stared at him and said quietly, "So what you mean is, the dying don't deserve help?" Terry immediately mocked him. "Don't forget it was that thing that ate 4 people, including your friend. He got eaten too. You sure forget fast, huh?" Daniel clenched his fists. "Want to keep fighting?" Terry switched the subject. "There, found it." Both bent over the cabinet. Daniel inadvertently stood too close. Remembering what Terry had said earlier, his face heated up. He couldn't help it. He punched Terry right in the face. Terry froze in confusion. Daniel only wanted a large bed to sleep on. Nothing more. That night, using training as an excuse to stay close to Daniel, Terry dragged him out to the outskirts. "Come on, attack me with everything you've got. Slip up even a little and I'll kill you." Daniel's eyes were ringing with exhaustion. He didn't bother hiding how done he was. Who dies is still up in the air. Every exorcist possessed a unique ability. Terry could solidify blood into any form, turning it into weapons or restraints, but the amount of blood was limited. Use it here, lose it there. Daniel was quickly immobilized by a construction made of hardened blood. Terry approached. "Fighting barehanded like this? Feels like I'm bullying you." Daniel only cared about one thing. "How do you kill a monster?" Terry leaned in. "Find the weak spot. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's just a shade lighter." He moved so close that one more step would bring them chest to chest. Daniel asked quietly, "So, you're still planning to hit me?" Terry withdrew the blood and said lazily, "It's almost sunrise." Daniel didn't understand the relevance, but when he saw Terry's wounds still unhealed, he asked, "How did you become an exorcist?" Terry paused before replying, "Who knows?" In truth, years ago, homeless and starving, someone offered him a box of steamed buns. And a choice. He was too hungry to refuse, and so he became a fake exorcist. For the first time, Daniel wrapped his arms around him. The feeling of losing Terry only to get him back made his throat tighten. He held Terry just to make sure the man was still alive. Then tragedy struck. To protect Daniel, Terry was lured into an abandoned building by a powerful monster and had both arms severed. The creature watched him writhe in pain, voice cold. "Don't worry, they'll grow back. But you don't have much strength left." Terry forced out, "What did you give my brother?" "He hasn't woken up." "Just a hallucinogen. Made it easier to bring you here." "What do you want? Say it." Shen hadn't expected to be read so easily. He spoke of his fascination with fake exorcists. He told Terry how he once devoured a man with special abilities, which gave him the glass-like arms he now wielded. Countless razor-sharp shards hovered around him. "Today, you die. But you want your little brother to leave that room alive, don't you?" At that moment, Terry thought of Daniel's face. He smiled faintly. "You got one thing wrong." Shen didn't have time to react. A mass of Terry's blood shot upward, condensing into a scarlet blade that split Shen's head in half. His head rolled to the floor. Yet his body still fought back, manipulating the glass shards to form an airtight prison around Terry. Shen sneered. "So you still refuse to cooperate? Fine. Let's see how long you can last in the tiny bit of air you've got left." He poured all his strength into regenerating. As expected from an S-class monster, his regeneration was monstrous. Terry's strength, however, was nearly gone. For the first time, he realized he might truly die here. He had only just found Daniel again. He didn't want to die. He couldn't die. Just as everything was collapsing, a deafening explosion tore through the air. The glass prison shattered as black vines lashed out from nowhere, hitting like a storm. Countless tendrils pierced Shen's body, rooting him in place. One vine accidentally scraped Terry's face, opening a long, thin cut. He turned, shocked. Daniel stood amid the wreckage, slowly stepping forward. One eye glowed with a sinister violet light. Black vines coiled around his arm, merging with the long, dark hair whipping behind him, as if an eerie, ancient power had awakened inside him. His voice was low, cold enough to freeze blood. "Give Terry back to me." Seeing Terry alive, Daniel rushed forward and embraced him tightly. No hesitation, no restraint. He knew one thing very clearly: he could not lose him. The S-class monster could not believe how terribly he had misjudged them both. Mad with rage, he summoned a rain of glass blades. "If you're not human, then die with me." Hundreds of shards shot forward. Daniel shielded Terry, black vines bursting outward to form a protective barrier. Terry stared, stunned. Daniel's ability had awakened. But Daniel was frantically searching for the monster's weak point. Shen regenerated far too quickly. Half his head had been cut off earlier, yet it had nearly grown back. If this continued, the fight would never end. And Daniel's barrier began to crack. Suddenly, a large hand rested on his shoulder. Terry spoke in a low voice. "Tear him apart." Shen, terrified of being pierced through like before, screamed. In an instant, his body was slashed into 4 pieces and fell to the ground. Daniel moved closer. The creature's single eye remained open. The torn flesh still wriggled, trying to regenerate. A sickening feeling crawled up Daniel's spine. Just as he hesitated, the floor erupted with a massive spear-like shard aimed at him. Before it could strike, a crimson blade pierced the monster's remaining eye. All regeneration stopped. Daniel whipped around, horrified. Terry had saved him again, but this time, he had nothing left. As the S-class dissolved into blinding white light, the signature of its death, Terry finally relaxed. Daniel threw his arms around him, holding him tightly. Terry swayed a little. Daniel had never held him like this before. He quickly asked, panicked, "Is your watch out of battery?" Only then did Terry understand Daniel saw the watch no longer displaying a heartbeat and thought he had died. Terry gently patted his back. "My arm was severed earlier. The connection between the heart and the watch cut off for a bit." Daniel held him tighter. He was scared, so scared he was trembling, afraid of losing him. Terry was being squeezed so tightly he almost couldn't breathe. He lifted Daniel's face and murmured, "The same guy who once made me wait in line is now clinging to me like this? How am I supposed not to get cocky?" He lowered his head and lightly nipped Daniel's ear. "But let me rest a few days first. I'm out of strength." Daniel cut him off, hugging him hard enough to silence him. "Stop talking. I like quiet." While in the isolation chamber, Daniel had fallen into a nightmare. The person who had haunted him for years lunged forward, strangling him. That voice, sickening, cruel, asked the questions that crushed his sanity. Panicking, Daniel grabbed a pen and stabbed him. But the face suddenly turned into Terry's. Daniel jolted awake. Cold sweat soaked his back. He didn't understand why. When he looked into the observation glass, he saw his own reflection. Then he remembered the injection Shen had given him. And it clicked. Shen had tampered with his daily medication. But why bring him here? To use him. Because he knew Terry was a fake exorcist? Daniel stared at the heart rate monitor. Terry once said, "If the monitor doesn't show my heartbeat, that means I'm dead." The needle was motionless. Daniel shook violently. The person who turned his world upside down was gone? Only now, remembering all the gentleness and protection, Daniel understood. Why Terry had locked him inside the wardrobe. Why he fought alone. Why he never let Daniel see the truth. S-class monsters weren't affected by blood-based manipulation. Terry had always been protecting him in silence. Daniel laughed, a hollow, broken sound. How blind had he been not to notice? In anger and despair, he slammed his fist against the glass. And then he heard Terry's voice. At the edge of death, Terry had opened the isolation room microphone, letting his voice reach Daniel because he didn't want to disappear before Daniel remembered him. And he gambled. And won. When the S-Class died and left behind an eye-shaped sigil, Terry touched it and whispered, "At last, I found someone who truly loves me back. Too bad the timing's wrong." Then he collapsed into Daniel's arms. "Can you carry me? I want to go home. But I've got no strength left." He passed out. In that unconscious haze, Terry heard Shen's voice. "We're the same. Both burdened with unforgivable sins. Both once wished for death, then met someone who made us desperately want to live." Terry tried to deny it, but Daniel appeared, coldly asking, "You opened the mic because you were afraid of dying, so you pushed me into danger?" Terry snapped awake. Warm sunlight poured through the window. The sound of chopping vegetables echoed from the kitchen. The smell of rich stew drifted through the air. Daniel was cooking. "You're awake, huh?" Daniel spoke without turning around. Terry leaned against the wall, lips curved in teasing amusement. "You're not wearing pants?" Daniel switched off the stove and set the bowl of soup on the table. "It's warm inside. I noticed it the first day I came here. Your home is always warm." That single line dragged Terry's childhood memories out of the cold shadows. He had grown up surrounded by ice. He had always hated the cold. Daniel sat down. "You slept for a whole day and night. Drink some soup to clear your head." Terry accepted the bowl. "To heal my arm faster, I pushed too hard. Even a spirit exorcist must pay a price for recovering." Daniel frowned. Terry suddenly asked, "How come I never saw you cook before?" "Because your kitchen had nothing in it. I used your phone to order everything." Terry imagined the scene and chuckled. "You seem like the type who'd secretly check their lover's phone." Daniel shot him a glare. "Stop flattering yourself." Then he calmly continued eating. The atmosphere was strangely peaceful. "It's been a long time since I had a proper meal. Thank you." Daniel froze. It was probably the first time Terry had ever said thank you to him. Thinking about how Terry had risked his life again for him, while he, aside from cooking one bowl of soup, had done nothing in return. The normally composed doctor suddenly stood up, grabbed an apple, and forced himself to act nonchalant. "Did you forget I stabbed you once? Just take this as compensation." But Terry lowered his gaze, guilt flickering across his face. He stepped forward, gently grasping Daniel's wrist, voice serious. "I'm sorry." Daniel was stunned. That line was supposed to be his. Before he could respond, Terry continued. "The walkie-talkie mic, I was the one who turned it on. I just wanted to bet everything on one last chance." He smiled bitterly. They had survived, but the guilt still weighed on him. He feared Daniel was angry. Feared Daniel wouldn't want to look at him anymore. The room grew heavy. Daniel lowered his head and resumed peeling the apple. The blade scraped against the skin, creating sharp, cold sounds. Only after a long silence did he speak, his voice slightly hoarse, edged with complicated emotion. "You gambled on whether I would wake up in time, on whether I would ignore everything and go after you, on whether that instinct to protect you would ignite my abilities. Is that it?" His tone sounded calm, but each word cut straight through. Behind him, Terry spoke softly, full of self-reproach. "You're the last person I ever wanted to hurt, yet in the end, I was the one who dragged you into danger. I hated myself so much for choosing that way." His voice trembled, as if he were peeling away every ugly, vulnerable part of himself. "But I kept wondering, what exactly made you wake up? Was it because, even just a little, you cared about me?" The more I thought about it, the more pathetic I felt. The knife in Daniel's hand struck the cutting board with a sharp crack, splitting the apple cleanly in two. He spoke quietly. "I hate having people see through me, that stripped bare feeling, exposed under someone's gaze." He set the knife down, brow furrowed, yet his voice softened. "But thinking about it, you've always been like this. If you want to say something, you say it. If you want to act, you act. No hesitation, not even about life or death." Daniel lifted a hand, brushing Terry's cheek. With a straightforwardness this infuriating, should I like you or resent you? His gaze drifted lazily toward the window. Outside, snow fell in a thick, sound-swallowing curtain. His voice lowered, almost sinking into memory. But when I saw your heart rate monitor drop to 0, I truly thought I had lost you. He turned back. His eyes were so deep Terry didn't dare look directly. Do you know what it feels like to lose something and then get it back? Terry's eyes widened, shock mingling with joy. So Daniel really did care. Right then, the doorbell rang, shattering the moment. It was Harry, Terry's direct superior, the one overseeing all spirit exorcists. After failing to reach Terry, he had come personally. Without greeting, Harry strode to the table, grabbed the phone sitting in a glass of water, wiped it dry, and said coldly, "Do you understand the consequences of losing contact with headquarters?" Terry pulled on his shirt, answering lazily, "What? Getting kicked into this month's training list? I'm heading over anyway." Harry froze. There's a rumor going around lately. They plan to form a special team dedicated to handling S-class howling spirits. Terry buttoned his shirt. Sounds good. Fewer casualties. Harry handed the phone back, his expression unusually serious. If they recruit you, you have the right to refuse. Terry laughed. Didn't expect you to worry about me. Ignoring him, Harry turned away. Let's go. The HQ is waiting. As he passed the living room, his gaze landed on Daniel. They both froze for half a second, and all Harry could think was, seriously, this kid is getting tangled up with men again? He sighed internally. This brat is absolutely going to die because of some guy one day. Just as Terry headed downstairs, he paused, lifted Daniel's chin, slid a finger along the curve of his jaw, and whispered, "Let me help you change your clothes." Daniel's face turned scarlet, heart hammering. He jumped up, voice trembling. Next time, let me help you." In the bedroom, he found the suit Terry had prepared, perfectly fitted. But he couldn't understand. Why dress so formally? Where was he planning to go? Before he could figure it out, his gaze landed on a messy note scribbled on a piece of paper. Daniel's home. Daniel's expression instantly darkened. Downstairs, Terry was still wondering, if I go back up now, does that count as next time? Before he could decide, a snowball smashed directly into his head. Dazed, he turned around. Daniel stood not far away, chest heaving, furious enough to tear the sky apart. Terry. What did I even do? Annoyed, he immediately scooped up a snowball double the size and hurled it back, so hard it knocked Daniel straight onto the ground. Daniel scrambled up, eyes blazing like he was ready for a real fight. Terry stuck out his tongue to provoke him. Harry stood by the car, watching the two chase each other like children, shaking his head. Unbelievable. Utterly childish. Daniel's throwing accuracy, 0%. Terry, meanwhile, became more aggressive the more he threw. When Terry was laughing too hard to pay attention, Daniel seized the chance, pitched one hard, smack, and shoved Terry face first into the snow. Daniel won, but was still furious enough to explode. Flat on his back in the snow, Terry sighed, then burst into laughter. For the first time in his life, happiness felt this close. But the joy didn't last. A strange, ominous aura suddenly swept across the sky. A thunderous screech echoed as an A-rank hawk howling spirit dove down. Terry instantly turned his blood into weapons and launched forward. But after only a few exchanges, he staggered, then collapsed unconscious. Harry ran to catch him, but his own vision blurred. A red smoke, emitted by the hawk. He held Terry tightly and shouted, "Don't come close!" He fired twice, blasting 2 large wounds into the hawk's torso. The creature screeched, then plummeted, straight toward Harry and Terry. In that fatal moment, a shadow-like whip shot across the air, wrapped around both of them, and yanked them aside. Harry looked up, horrified. "Daniel? How are you using a shadow controller's ability?" Daniel tried to force the black tendrils to pierce the hawk's skin, but its body was like steel. Only scratches appeared. He shot upward, manifested two sharp weapons and plunged them into its eyes. The hawk shrieked violently, flung him away, and crashed him to the ground. Daniel hit hard, inhaling a little red smoke, his vision dimming. The hawk dove, then vanished into a sewer opening. Daniel couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed. Through his fading sight, he saw a figure approaching. Then everything went dark. When Daniel woke in the hospital, Harry was sitting beside him. Daniel shot up. "Where's Terry?" Harry replied. "Probably inhaled too much smoke. He hasn't woken up yet." Daniel exhaled in relief. But then click-a-gun pressed coldly against his forehead. Harry pulled the trigger halfway, voice low and dangerous. "Just who are you? And why do you possess a spirit exorcist's abilities?"